Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Awakening Collective podcast. It is Hayley here, and thank you so much for being with me today as we talk about the identity that you may be afraid to be, and how this is just like another level, another layer that may be blocking your spiritual gifts. If you've been following me for a while, you will know that we've talked about many different blocks that can stop you from really stepping into your intuitive power, from stepping into those psychic gifts. And like I said, this is just another one of those that you may be experiencing that may be in the way. And it is something that I have had to sort of deal with myself within my identity. And it is also something that I've seen a lot of other awakening women have to sort of go through, deal with, and put aside as well in order for them to really step into who they came here to be. Let's talk about, well, first of all, I just want to talk quickly about identity. And identity's become a big thing over the last 4 years, but I just want to pop in my perspective for you on identity. Every layer or identity, let's say every identity that we attach to about ourselves, that we, really latch onto as a part of who we are, actually hinders what we are able to do, be, and experience. And I wish I could draw a diagram for you, but I want you to imagine a stick figure in the middle of a page. You can even draw this out as I'm saying it if you like. Imagine a stick figure in the middle of the page. And right at the edge of the page, if you draw a circle around that stick figure, and that may be, let's say, for instance, that you're a woman. And so you have all these different beliefs and past life traumas and karmic loops and experience that, about what a woman should be, do, have, look like. Some of them are beautiful and amazing, and some of them are limiting. Now, if within that circle, you now draw another circle, getting closer into your stick figure, getting closer into the body, that you're a mum. So then there are also going to be, that's another layer of beliefs around what a mum can do, can have, should be doing, should be looking like, should be experiencing. And then let's say after that, you put another circle in, getting closer into the body because, I don't know, you're a nurse. So then there's, a whole nother load of beliefs around what a nurse should be, look like, do, have, the hours they should be working, what their life should look like. And so the more identities that we attach to and latch onto, the less space we actually have to move. And that's why you hear a lot of these like a lot of I don't want to say gurus, but spiritual gurus and all these profound things that we hear about just being human and being spiritual, because it takes away all of those different layers that have all of these layered beliefs around what we should be experiencing, what we should have, what we are able to do. And so this is why having identity, like, I'm a woman, I'm a mum, I'm a spiritual entrepreneur, like this is all great. But if you're attaching too much into that and not and allowing the beliefs within those identities to hold you back, like I said, obviously the closer and closer those circles get in, the less you are able to experience, because you're putting limits on yourself in so many different ways. So rather than going, well, I am Hayley and I'm here experiencing this world and I understand that I can be, do, have anything, as I'm doing the clearing, and I'm going to clear all of these beliefs out of my way so that I can be, do, and have everything. Or I can sit here going, well, I'm a mum, so I can't do this or have that. I'm middle income, so I can't do this or have that. I'm a woman, so I can't do this and can't have that. So yeah, I think it's great to know who you are as a person in those identities, but attaching too much to the beliefs within those identities is what can get us into trouble. So I just wanted to go on that first as we come and talk about spiritual identity and the identity around being a tarot reader or being intuitive, wanting to step into your psychic gifts. Maybe you're a medium, maybe you see orbs, maybe you really love and work well with crystals. whatever that is, this identity brings up a lot of blocks within our intuition and fears, mainly around the judgment of that, because for a long time, the identity of, sorry, bashing the microphone, I hope that wasn't too annoying. The identity around being spiritual, psychic, tarot reading, mediums, hasn't been that great. And even around women's intuition, women's intuition is picked on and shamed a lot. I mean, even in movies and all these kind of things. And so it's something that starts bringing shame upon us. And I think we all probably know, if you're listening to this by now, that shame is, one of those real lower frequencies that actually does stop us from moving forward, when we're holding on to that. And it does hold a lot of the time, not all the time, but like it really does block that lower sacral chakra, where we really harness in a lot of feminine, divine feminine wisdom. So we do really need to look into this. And this may be you, this may not be you. You may have grown up in a household where spiritual gifts were, just part of the norm, but you still may have some stuff there from past lives or from people who didn't believe the same as your family, who made you feel this way. So yeah. And once you hit awakening and once you start on your spiritual journey and you do start either opening up your gifts or start embracing the gifts that you already have, those identity wounds can really come up and shift. So, yeah, I mean, you may have heard things growing up like you're too sensitive, when you cried a lot or felt other people's emotions a lot. If you were, you might have been told to stop being weird if you were talking about dead people or unicorns, or sorry, I shouldn't say dead people, that's so crash, passed over loved ones, or like I said, if you were, talked a lot about fairies or anything like that, you'd be told to stop being weird. If you were someone who had a huge imagination, you'd be told to stop living in a fantasy world. I used my imagination to sort of like play out things to quite an old age. Like I was probably like 14 before I stopped doing pretend play. And I always was told, oh God, you're such an idiot, grow up, all that kind of stuff. But, the things that I played out at that age came true. And I did achieve those dreams that I was playing out and those goals that I was playing out. I kind of didn't realize I was doing that at the time. But when I look back, knowing what I know now, I used to play out working on a cruise ship, and I used to love watching the Love Boat, and I'd pretend that I was on the Love Boat, and and I worked on cruise ships for 3 years as a dancer, and it was one of the most amazing times of my life. And getting paid to do what I love, visiting new countries every day. And so I'm not regretting it now, but I did get a lot of crap for it. And yeah, I was just told to stop living in a fantasy world and grow up and stop doing make pretend. But also, movies, even when it comes to intuition, or, tarot readers and psychics are portrayed as not charlatans, sorry, completely wrong word, but are portrayed as, swindlers and liars and all of this kind of thing. And so that's in there too, all of that programming from movies where, things have, they've sort of portrayed it as something that, is not just wrong, but it's not true. And anyone who tells you that they can, talk to your crossed over loved ones or think that they can predict the future are quite obviously liars and all of that kind of thing. So, and, obviously just being too woo-woo, being too flaky, and there's so many different things. And I'd really like to invite you to either right now or after this podcast, when you get a chance, to just sit and actually go, okay, well, what identities have I heard around this, and what identities have I had and been brought up with or had projected onto me as I grew up, and even now, where you are now, about people who have intuitive gifts, who do believe that your intuition is the way to go, who do believe that, we can communicate with passed over loved ones, who do believe that we can telepathically bring in alien races, or I shouldn't say aliens, galactic races. So yeah, I really invite you to sit down and have a think about that, and what identity, like what it means to you and your identity, if you were to openly talk about the fact that you believe in intuition, or that you're doing a course on intuition, or you've been going to a medium, or you've been taking a tarot course, or you've been to a tarot reader. What have people said to you about that, and how have they reacted, and how has that made you feel? So we want to be really careful, because when these blocks come up, there's so many ways that it can affect us. I repeat this over and over again, but in case this is your first time here, I truly believe that our intuition is the way to navigating our lives. If we're not listening to that intuition, it's there to put us on the right path, the path of joy, the path of abundance. And the more we ignore it, the worse we're going to get. Well, the more we're going to get off track. And so, if we're not following our intuition, if we're not harnessing that in, we're not going to be saying what we really feel. Our boundaries are going to get blurred. We may not start the spiritual business that we want to start if we believe that people aren't going to take us seriously, or are going to say we're too woo, or going to go, oh my God, you're just making it up. You're a big fat liar. And that was one of my biggest things, is that people would just think that I'm making it up because they watch all these movies and see all these things, or they believe that it's not real. And so they think that I'm just a big liar, and I'm not. And you're not either, right? But that was one of the biggest hurdles that I had to get through. But if we're not doing it, like I said, we're also ignoring those signs and those synchronicities that are going to keep us moving towards our highest timeline, moving towards that path of abundance and joy that is going to help harness in, a better earth, and a healthier, happier place for us all to be and to live. So yeah, and so yeah, that's the way that it can show up in lives. Yeah, and the deeper belief in there, and is, if I trust my intuition, I'll become someone that people don't love, that people don't respect, that people don't understand. And you get, when people say things, you get embarrassed and then ashamed of who you are, or that you believe that, or, that you even have faith and hope that guides are leading you, and that, you're being divinely moved and navigated through your life. Even that in itself people can make you feel embarrassed about that, especially these people who are like, oh, you live, you're born, you die, and it's hard, and that kind of attitude. And if you're having an attitude of, well, actually, if I actually listen to my guides and follow my intuition, abundance opens up to me and I can live an amazing life. And it's funny that, like, that's the thing that people pick on, right? We've become this society where if you believe that you can have and hold more, if you're following your divine plan and following your intuition, that you're the weird one, and you're the, yeah, but like, it's normal to kind of, for everybody, like, our society in some spots becomes this place of, well, whoever's the worst off wins. Whoever has the most to complain about is the winner. And so you're looked at as weird if you aren't whinging and you aren't complaining, and you're doing what you can to actually harness in more abundance in your life. And like, that weirds me out. If I'm being honest. I mean, each to their own and everything, but yeah, it is it is a bit funny. So how you can identify these things and start overcoming these beliefs, if they're something that's really sitting in your field. And I just want you, after you've listened to this, to just have a sit and think about it, and just allow over the next day or so things to come to the surface, because sometimes it's not until we've actually gone, we've heard something like this and heard somebody talk about something like this, that it goes, oh, okay, into your subconscious. And then a couple of days go by, and these things do start coming up. So, I encourage you and invite you to journal, like, what identity was I taught would make me unlovable and unsafe around, and not like any identity, not just with this. So, and what was I taught about sort of spirituality as an identity? What was I taught about what it means to be somebody who believes in, psychic gifts, who believes in being intuitive, who believes in mediumship and that you can connect with past loved ones. Like what were you taught about that may be making you feel unsafe and ashamed and embarrassed? And what's actually true about the version of me? And again, this is you can do this with all, like, you can sit and write down everything that you identify as, like, woman, mother, sportsman, nurse, all of those things, um, and write down what beliefs you hold in that and how much you attach to that too, and how much you really make it mean something about you, and whether that's stifling your ability to step into your gifts and to step out into believing that you can have something greater. And we can go into identity. I might do a bit of a bigger podcast on breaking down identity. But yeah, so and what is the true version of me? If I actually sit and think about spirituality and harnessing in my gifts, what is true about that version of me, and what do I love about that version of me, and what can I bring in with that version of me? And I just want to give you a little affirmation of the most magic version of me is the one that is fully expressed, connective, intuitive, and authentic. So how do we move towards this? How do we move and shift these identities and shift the identity of spiritual intuitive or, psychic intuitive? How do we move that to fully express and connect and be authentic in that? So yeah, you remember that you are so gifted. And again, my belief is that they're not necessarily gifts, that we're all born with them, and our intuition and the ability that we have to connect with crossed over loved ones, the abilities that we have to be able to connect with our spirit guides and galactic friends, is so that we can harness in the new earth. And we do that by living at the most abundant that we can in the highest timeline that we can. And so it's about expanding those gifts, trusting those gifts, and learning that it's safe to use them. Because again, like today we've talked about identity, but we've talked about quite a few different blocks that are stopping you from feeling safe harnessing in those gifts. So yeah, but they're already there. You just need to expand them, and they're just waiting there for you to take a deep breath and go, okay, I'm going to go into this and I'm going to step into that. But that is all we have for today. So I just want to remind you of, if you are interested in opening up your gifts a little bit more, at the moment I am about to do this week my second circle in a 3-circle series. So if you register this week, if you haven't already, you will get the replay instantly of the first circle, where we talked about past lives and we went into our Akashic records and looked at a past life that may be blocking us from stepping into our gifts. But we also went into a life where we were actually in mastery of a gift, and where it was safe to have this gift. So that was pretty cool. And this week we are diving into the deep feminine wisdom, into the divine feminine. So we're going to be doing a little bit of work around the womb space and clearing and activating in that space. And then the third one, we are going to be just connecting into our spirit guides and using oracle cards to do so. So if that's something that sounds like fun to you, it's completely free. I will put the link to register in the show notes. And let me know how you feel about this topic, because identity has been a big, huge thing over the last few years, like I said, and we make it mean so much about us, but at the same time, it's a very, very limiting to attach too much because of the negative beliefs that we hold in those identities and what we make it mean that we can't achieve and that we can't do. All the things you can't do as a woman or haven't been able to do as a woman, how repressed you are, how hard it is to be a mum, and the limits on that. So we want to make sure that we're really like noticing and looking. I mean, even at the moment, sorry, I'll just say one more thing. I'm going to do another podcast on this down the road, but I'm about to turn 47, and I've never had a thing about age or never had a thing, about getting older until this year. And I think it's because I'm clocking over into that closer to 50, and I'm stepping into perimenopause. So I'm noticing things changing. And so it's all those beliefs that come up around what it means to be a woman at my age, and, all these underlying things of, time to be put out to pasture, sort of that old school societal, and obviously a lot of past life stuff coming up around, once you are no longer of childbearing years, then, your worth in society depletes. And, so there's been a lot coming up around that too. So, yeah, just another thing to be very aware of when it comes to identity and your age and what that means about you, especially as a woman. Just another little sidebar to think about. But thank you so much for being with me. Let me know in the comments if, how this went for you, how it sat with you, if it really triggered you talking about identity. And I will see you again next week. All right, bye.